Hello and welcome. Welcome to episode 10 of Healing America and Beyond. I am Mary Grace, and I have with me here Dr. Shawn Baker. You are probably watching us live on some of his channels or my channels. Either way, we hope that you are tuning in today. And we always love your comments. So please let us know where you're tuning in from. We're going to talk about all things. Not all things, but a lot of things having to do with diet and exercise, and especially addressing metabolic issues such as blood sugar, blood pressure, the sort of standard American and Western maladies that are largely preventable. And Dr. Shawn Baker is one of the best qualified people to do that. The author of the Carnivore Diet, a many years carnivore himself. A record-holding athlete. I mean, where does it end? I just want to know if you went dressed as Jack Reacher or the Incredible Hulk for Halloween. It's
You know,
not.
I didn't do much. I didn't do much for Halloween at all. Quite honestly, this year, I live so far out in the country. There's no
Yeah,
there's no
yeah.
kids coming around or anything like that. So,
So,
I did not celebrate much for Halloween this year, and it was cold and wet and rainy, and it was just like,
oh yeah, well that's where
so
you live, right?
did not dress up. So sorry about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. We didn't. I don't usually do it either, but I would say you would probably do really fine if you just dressed up as Jack Reacher. You really
Yeah, a lot
wouldn't
of
have to
people
do
have
much.
commented on the resemblance of that, and
Yeah,
I think if you read the novel, I think Lee Childs wrote those books, I think, and he said that the
yeah.
description was 6'5", 250 or something. That's what I am
There
basically.
you
So
go.
kinda like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, just gotta stay on your good side. But, we are gonna talk today about a few different things, and thank you for checking in, everybody. We see people checking in over on YouTube. I think we're live on Facebook, Rumble, so a
See
lot of
somebody from
places.
Spain, St.
Yeah,
Port St. Lucie, Florida, yeah. Okay. Lake
yeah.
Stevens, Washington, that's my neighbor. I'm in Snohomish.
Oh,
That's literally the
awesome.
next town up next to me, so that's cool.
Idaho, really close.
Yep.
Yeah, so listen, we already have a question and we want you to hold your questions. We will take questions at the end. So Andrew on YouTube, please just copy and paste that at the end. And we want you to put a triple Q in front of your question. But if you do your questions now, we're going to lose track of them in the chat. But we promise we'll get to as many questions as we can in the second half of the show. So, Dr. Baker, something came up behind the scenes before we went on air, and I think we should just jump right into that. You were talking about a post that President Trump put up about the meat packers, and you have been really vocal about what's going on with our meat supply in this country, especially beef. Do you want to jump into that and address that right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, and some of the listeners may already be aware of this, but I mean, in the United States, about 85% of all beef that is sold in the United States, through restaurants, grocery stores and what have you, is under the control of four companies. Two of them are U.S.-based companies, Tyson and Cargill, and two of them are Brazilian-based companies. One is called JBS, and one is called Marfrig, or in the U.S. it's called National Beef. And the problem has been, there's a lot of concern about price fixing and collusion, and they sort of operate to you know, the ranchers don't really have a choice in the matter. If they're going to sell their cattle, which they sell their cattle to these agencies who then process them, pack them, get them out for the retail prices. And what happens is, even though we've seen a significant decline in cattle prices, what the ranchers are getting paid right now, there's been no decline in beef prices because these agencies are still making money. And that's not a new thing. This has been going on for decades and decades and decades. Basically, the ranchers are getting screwed. They take on all the risk. They put in most of the work, and they don't really get much for it. They kind of get screwed. And some of these big mega corporations, JBS for one, has been convicted of fraud multiple times. I think the brothers that own it have had all kinds of nefarious criminal sort of proceedings against them. So this is a chronic, ongoing problem. I know there's a lot of people Thomas Massey has his Prime Act. There's this so-called MCOOL, mandatory country origin labeling thing, has been
Hmm.
talked about. It used to be a law until like 2015. It got repealed. It used to be, and some people don't care. I mean, some people, and we saw this thing about possibly bringing in more Argentinian beef, and no knock against Argentinian beef. A lot of people around the world really enjoy Argentinian beef, and I think it's fine. I don't think it's better than U.S. beef, just for the record. I
Right,
don't,
right.
but still, I mean, I mean, it's like, me going to the grocery store and buying some French cheese. I mean, that's great. I got a choice, but I know where it's coming from. The problem in the United States right now is that if you get a packet of hamburger and it says product of the USA, it could be from Namibia, it could be from Brazil, it could be from Mexico, it could be from Argentina, Uruguay, it could be from Canada. Who knows? I mean, it could be from anywhere.
Wow.
And it's not that I'm to say that that beef is somehow
Mhm.
inferior or harming people, but it's just deceptive. And I think it hurts the American rancher in many ways, because some people want to support our ranchers, and ground beef is the most common way most people consume beef. And, a packet of beef in a grocery store could have 50, 70, 100 different animals in it, all from all different places, because what happens is we tend to send our premium cuts away, overseas to export them. And then we import all the kind of the cheap, trim and stuff like that. So it's an important issue. Hopefully something will happen with this. Some people suggest that they break the meat packers up. Some people would suggest that, uh, you know, allowing more choice in the processing side of things, because that's where a lot of the holdup is. A rancher might have, 100 head of cattle that he has to bring to slaughter, and they're like, we don't have any capacity. You got to book this out 2 years in advance, and so it's not straightforward. I mean, there's a lot of complexity in there, and I'm not certainly an expert on this, but I know, I've been around this space long enough to know what some of the issues are,
Mhm.
and these are some of the issues that are out there. They need to be solved, honestly, because I think our food security, particularly when it comes to something as nutritious as what we get from beef, to not have that something that we have a real good handle on and a long future for is a national security issue. It really is. If we can't feed ourselves as a nation, it's a real problem. It's a real problem,
Yeah.
and we got to fix that. And
And
currently,
there's
right now, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
currently,
there's
right now, we're a net import of beef, I believe. So we're importing more beef than we export. We don't need to do that. I mean, we got enough producers that could do it if we align the incentives correctly. But it's a problem. We got to be able to feed ourselves safely.
especially in the US. I think one of the biggest cattle ranches in the world is in Hawaii on the Big Island. Is that still the case? At least when I was living in Hawaii, it was known there's a huge, huge cattle ranch out there, which you wouldn't really think of it as, Hawaii cattle ranching, but the Big Island is really
Yeah,
big.
I mean, I think it's like maybe Wyoming or something. I can't. I remember when I was on the Big
You know what
Island,
I'm
and
talking
I
about?
yeah, I mean, I know there's one there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the biggest in the U.S. or anything, but I mean,
Mhm.
it's probably a decent sized ranch,
Really
and
big, yeah.
yeah, I mean, but like I said, every region that can support cattle ranching, and we certainly could expand the grazing lands that we have. I mean, right now we have a lot of land that is tied up agriculturally in, producing corn and ethanol, which is kind of, a lot of people would argue, is just a waste.
Mhm.
Um, and every year we lose about 20,000 cattle ranchers, something like that. 15 to 20,000 every year go under, and a lot of their land gets bought up. It gets turned into, strip malls and commercial properties. And once that occurs, it's almost impossible to turn that back into grazing land. So
Mhm.
we are precariously, not, worried, losing our ability to feed ourselves. It's a real problem.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that, and when you talk about the situation and how it affects the farmers, I've seen, especially in the past 5 years, the price of beef go up, but even in the past 6 months, you go in the grocery store and you're looking at 16 to $20 a pound for ribeye, um, or more, like $23 a pound, I think last time I was at the grocery store. I went, to Whole Foods yesterday, and granted, they're not always the cheapest, but they do have sometimes, it's not they're not always through the roof, but even the stew beef in there was 11.99 a pound, and last time I got it, it was 9.99 a pound. And, I mean, that's a significant increase in price in just a few weeks. And I think that everybody can attest to that, that we're seeing, especially for pretty much anything but the cheapest roll of hamburger on clearance, at the store is really inflated in price. People are talking about how they can get ground chicken cheaper than ground beef now. Do you think that some of that is, Do you think there's any kind of conspiracy behind that to keep people from actually eating beef?
You know, I mean, there's people that would like to do that for sure. I mean, there's undoubtedly people out there that would love to put cattle ranching out of business, would have us all go on this sort of basically pseudo vegetarian diet. I mean, there are people out there that exist, and some of them are well resourced, well connected, well funded, and would love to pass policies. I mean, every year, you see some of these wacko activists that want to end cattle ranching, make it illegal to, you know, slaughter animals, things like that. So that's, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not a conspiracy. There are people that actually want to do that. Is that the current reason for the prices going up? No, I don't think so. I think it's just a supply demand issue. I mean, we've had, a pretty long drought relatively over the last 5, 6 years. Uh, Beef cattle herds in the United States are at historic lows. I mean, the last time we had this few animals was like the 1950s. And so some of that is just that. Probably most of it is that. Now, again, there are obviously, as I mentioned, there's a disconnect between the prices that the cattlemen get versus what the retailers are
Mhm.
charging. So they're clearly profiting from this, and some of it may just be greed on their end. I think that you know it's something that, not in this country, but in other countries, you definitely seeing a huge push to put cattlemen out of business. I mean, in the UK, they've got this horrendous taxation sort of policy being proposed. I don't know if it's passed. You've seen, due to this sort of the climate catastrophe crew trying to, get rid of cows to save the planet, which is complete nonsense. I mean, that's going on in other countries for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, the
I don't know that.
Netherlands
Yeah,
Netherlands,
the
the
Netherlands, yeah,
farmers are really under
the
attack.
Netherlands, the Germans, the French. I mean, all these people are kind
Mhm,
of they're
mhm.
nutso when it comes to some of their policies. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
interesting. It is really interesting to think about because, uh, you know, the way this country was founded was on farming, individual farmers, small farmers, even small cooperatives, right? But it seems like more and more every time you turn around, anything that you want to do in this country is now owned by private equity or big companies, and it doesn't make sense. It's hard not to go to that conspiracy place in your mind to think that there's a bigger, more sinister plan behind a lot of this, in my opinion. And, when we look at what happened in during COVID and how they decided which businesses were essential, none of the moms and pops were allowed to stay open, right? It was all the big
yeah.
corporations, and a lot of
Well,
smaller operations have gone under since then.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, who's making these policies and who's influencing the policymakers, and you
Mhm.
see the same thing with what's happening even in the current administration. We see, like, for instance, the pharmaceutical industry has this stranglehold on all of our politicians, and that's why some of the policies that are coming out now we're seeing RFK going from, I think these Ozempic drugs are horrible and we should, not adopt them, to yesterday announcing, hey, we're super excited that we're gonna lose 150 billion pounds, or whatever the projections are. And again, I've certainly got mixed thoughts
Yeah.
on that stuff. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're just a small business owner trying to make it through, I mean, you're gonna get screwed. I mean, if you don't have a congressman in your back pocket, like pharmaceutical industry has three lobbyists for every single member of Congress, and so it's like, they get that, and it's part of this crony capitalism. I mean, we see
Mhm.
like what happened in New York, where they elected this guy who's, says I'm going to end. I don't know what his, I know some people call him the communist. He says he's a socialist. Regardless, there are some problems within, the corporatism, the corporate capitalism that we have outside of just capitalism, which, would sort of let things, markets exist in a fair manner, which they don't, unfortunately.
I think that's a good distinction, the distinction between true capitalism and corporatism, because when you have, again, a big private equity firm that's taking over what used to be small businesses, for example, veterinary practices or dental practices or home service businesses. It used to be that you called up your local deli or your local plumber to get something, and then you were actually talking to the owner or a family member or something like that. And now when you call up, chances are you're actually calling a call center, and the business may have maintained the name, but it's owned under private equity, and you're not actually getting the service. It's not even run by the people that you think are running it. That's corporatism, right? And it's happening at all levels of business in this country. Um, so I think, it's while we're talking about beef, I want to talk about one of our sponsors. I think this is a good time to do that because we do have an American company that is offering a very very good source of freeze dried beef. And so when we talk about food security, one of the things that people like to do is stockpile, and some people call it prepping. But this company, griddownchowdown.com, they actually are working with local farmers and ranchers to source grass-fed, grass-finished, US grown and US processed beef. And so when you buy from them, you are supporting American farmers and ranchers. You're helping to save American farm and ranch land when you support this company. So it's griddownchowdown.com, promo code Mary Grace. You can do a subscription model with this. They have pre-made patties. They do have jerky now. So if you just want jerky on hand, you can buy that. But this is freeze-dried beef. You can reconstitute this and do the same thing with this that you would do with a pound of fresh ground beef. So it's a pretty fantastic product, and you are directly supporting local American owned, American run farms and ranches right in the center of the country. So let's give them our love. Get on their subscription model, and remember that it's a small business, and you're not going to get the turnaround time that you would get with the overnight with the big box companies. So just keep that in mind. But it's worth the wait, and they're great guys. They've been on the show before. Really, really fantastic. Griddownchowdown.com. And so just make sure you support them. Okay. Uh, let's get this off the screen. How do I do that? My producer lost her way for a minute there. Okay, let's shift a little bit to talking a little bit about you and I had talked last time we had the show. You're passionate about fitness. You are passionate about movement and keeping the body strong and all of the connections between staying strong and proactively doing what you need to do to age well. And I think that our audience is pretty passionate about that. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts. One of the pillars of strength that you always mention and longevity is physical fitness. Um, Talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, I know you could talk for hours about it. So,
Yeah, just an overview, of almost any sort of variable you could compare, on outcomes, longevity, resistance to disease, so on and so forth. Whether someone's diabetic or not, whether they have heart disease or not, whether they have, whatever biomarkers you might want to use. What we see is a significant segregation between the people that have low capacity physically. I'm talking about athletic capacity versus those that have high capacities. So those are the people that have very high VO2 maxes. That mean they're very physically, cardiovascularly fit. Those people that a recent study just came out showing that those people that are very powerful, and what I mean by power, that is the ability to move weight rapidly. And so, like, some of you guys that follow me see me doing, like, power cleans and things like that.
mhm.
That type of capacity, and that translates into things like jumping, sprinting fast. If you can maintain those things into older ages, that is probably one of the highest um, things that's associated with better and longer life and better outcomes as far as disease resistance. And so but that requires, um, you know, uh, actually doing that, and it's not safe for many people to do that. I would not recommend anyone start doing exactly what I'm doing. If you see me do some workout, don't try to do that because you're going to get hurt. The only reason I can do that at my age is because I've been progressively preparing my body to be able to do that, to include diet, to include sleep, to include preparatory training and exercises. And now I'm at a point where I can sprint all out at nearly 60. I can do heavy power cleans. I can jump. I can do all the things that you normally associate that with someone much younger, athletes in their
Mhm.
20s and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's not, and I, it's kind of funny because I always get people sort of commenting saying, "Oh, well, you just need to take it easy. And if I did that, I'd snap my knee." And that might be true for you, but don't let someone else's limitations limit you. Because I mean, yeah, I know there's a lot of people my age that couldn't even approach, even pretend to want to do what I do. That doesn't limit me. And in fact, it's kind of like it's kind of cool because when I'm a competitive athlete, so I know that the competition is just getting less and less. I mean, there's less as people want to do. It shouldn't be that way. And one of the reasons a lot of people can't do that or don't want to do that is because they don't feel very good, you know, and
Mm.
even to start. And this is where nutrition becomes important because the things that make your joints hurt are one, obesity, because, some people talk about the mechanical loading effects, excess weight causes the joints to experience more force. That's true, but it's not really the major factor. There are heavy people that are strong and don't have joint pain. It's more the biological and the inflammatory effects that excess adipose tissue has. It causes a secretion of inflammatory cytokines, which then irritate the joints. In addition to that, certain types of food, particularly refined, processed, highly glycemic carbohydrates like flours and sugars and wheats and grains, those types of things also seem to be detrimental, as are perhaps some of these highly processed oils that we consume. So these are the things that I would just urge people to um, think about. You go to bed, you wake up, oh, my elbow hurts, my neck hurts, I must have slept on it wrong.
Mhm.
It could have been what you ate last night. I mean, and that's a reality thing. I discounted this for years as an orthopedic surgeon. Nowadays, I take that very seriously because I know unequivocally that is a huge component of how
Mhm.
you feel good. And if we're looking at like the analogy of a nice race car, a race car's got this fantastic engine, you can equate that to our heart and our lungs. But if it's got flat tires, it ain't going anywhere, and the engine's going to seize up and rust anyway. So you want to maintain that musculoskeletal system so that you can continue to allow your heart and lungs to work at a high capacity, so that
Mhm.
and it's not going to kill you early. I mean, that's nonsense. What it will do is protect you. It will make you harder to kill. And I
Mhm.
think that's what most people need to realize that. And some people get it. We see some phenomenal examples of people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even beyond that are just doing phenomenal athletic things. And the reason they do that is because they do that. And I mean, I know it sounds
Mhm.
kind of simplistic, but that's what you
Yeah.
got to do.
Yeah, it's interesting, the thing you're saying about waking up with an ache or pain, um, I one of the things that I noticed is when I switched away from highly processed foods, to to meat-based, high fat, um, you know, no just got away from highly ultra processed foods, seed oils, things like that, is that my feet stopped hurting. And, I just it was one of those things where I just thought that I had really sensitive feet and that, like I would have to go like maybe you can relate to this, some people listening. Going through the day, I couldn't really make it through a whole day in the same pair of shoes because my feet would bother me and I'd have to switch out maybe to a softer pair of shoes. And I mean, forget wearing heels or anything like that. It was so painful. And I thought that was just me. And then when I stopped eating those foods, my feet stopped hurting. And it would like I would get like the bottom of my feet would hurt. And now, like, my feet don't hurt anymore, which you wouldn't like, you don't go into something like this thinking, "If only I could just get my feet to stop hurting, I will go on a meat-based, high-fat, high animal fat diet, like, I'll just eat beef," right? You don't really think about that, but what you're saying is so valid that if you start if you wake up and you've got this pain or that pain, people are so used to being sick and tired that they don't even know that there's something in their own behavior that could be causing that because it's become their baseline and they don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that it could be different. And I didn't know that my feet could stop hurting just by changing my diet. It's amazing, really, if you think about it. But if you think about what the fuel is that you're putting in your body, the same thing is applicable with an engine. If you're putting crap in your engine, it's going to run crappy, right? And one of the big fallacies I think with people who are on like a plant-based or vegetarian or vegan diet is that they fall into the trap of eating a lot of really highly processed foods and thinking that it's healthy because it's non-GMO, it's organic, things like that. Even people on ketogenic diets are eating highly processed, like keto junk foods, basically, and wonder why they still don't feel better. So, I, I mean, that's been my experience. So thank you for bringing that up. Back to the physical aspect of thing. When you talk about the types of things you're talking about, one of the things that I see with women, especially my age, you see women being told, or even older people, just start with small weights, right? Things like that. Don't lift too heavy, you could hurt yourself. Now there is validity to that, but like you're not lifting lightweight. I mean, you're not as old as I am, but you're old. So yeah,
It's
yeah,
a relative term, right? Old
I
is a
know.
relative term.
But
Uh,
you're lifting heavy. You're doing Olympic lifts. So how does that work for older people, for people 50 and older, right? How
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a progression, right? I mean, yeah, you might
Mhm.
have to start with very light weights, and then the whole point is progressive resistance, which means you have to progress. I mean, that's how you continue to adapt. Like I said, none of us, including myself, are like in the perfect shape or where we. It's always a journey that you want to continue to make progress on, because I mean, what's the alternative? You this is the one thing that's, as you mentioned, I'm about a year from turning 60, so I don't think I'm old, but I mean, my kids would argue, would disagree. But I mean, I think what happens is a lot of people, as they get older, they start to become irrelevant. And part of it is their physicality. They become frail. They become frail of body. They become frail of mind and frail of spirit. I mean, they become relegated to almost like pets. I mean, it's like, oh, look how cute grandma is. Let's put a funny hat on her and sit her in the corner and
Mm,
put a piece of cake in front of her and take a picture. I mean, you don't want that. I mean, you want to be relevant, you want to be vigorous, you want to be productive, you want to be useful, you want to be someone that people still find value in. And it's not that
mm,
we don't find value in these old people that are frail, but I mean, the point is they're kind of there as an afterthought. They're not actually participating. They're not able to really contribute in many ways. Not all of them. I don't want to be too dismissive of everyone, but I mean, that's the reality of it. And
mhm,
it's something that you can absolutely avoid. The physical activity, the athletic activity, not only is it improving your physical being, but it's improving your mental health too. And it's improving your cognitive abilities, and probably it has impacts on your spirituality. So I think
yeah,
that
yeah,
there is all the reason in the world to do this stuff. And and again, a lot of people know me for I'm the carnivore guy. I'm the guy that's with the carnivore diet and blah blah blah.
mhm,
And if I were to think about how would I like to be remembered, after I'm gone, whenever that may be, God willing, it's a long time from now. But I hope I'm the guy that inspired people to be physically fit, athletic, and vigorous. And then diet's one tool to get you there. But I mean, I would rather be known for that than, I'm 100% happy about, carnivore and what we've been able to achieve with that. And I still think it is a wonderful tool for sick people. And I think we should continue to, study it, research it, recommend it. But again, I think if, the reason I'm where I'm at today is not because I eat meat. I mean, it contributes to it as part, but the reason is what I'm able to do is because of the effort I put in, with the physical side, and it's not that much. I mean, I spend 5, 6 hours a week. I mean, it's not that much time in the grand scheme of things. When you think about
no,
it, I spend, most people spend more time watching TV a week than that, or
yeah,
staring at Instagram or whatever. You could probably find 20 things that you spend more than 4 or 5 hours a week on, and to say that you do so much good for your health and your and health of your family too. I mean, I think it's all related, because when you set the example for your wife, your kids, even your parents. I mean, you impact more than just yourself.
Yeah, that's so good, and um, I think this is a good time to talk about what you're doing with Rivero because people sometimes need a boost, whether they're having physical issues, like physiologically, mechanically, whether they're having some kind of metabolic issue. Uh, One of the things that we've seen is that the traditional sort of pharmacopoeia model really hasn't been serving people well. And you guys are doing something pretty cool over at Rivero. And we've had people in the chat, in the audience who have been helped by what you're doing there. Can you talk a little bit about what that opportunity is for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in fact, I was responding to a comment. There was a physician that said, we've tried lifestyle interventions,
Mhm.
different dietary schemes, and it just doesn't work. And, unless you're going to go home and make sure that someone eats a certain diet, it's doomed to fail. So let's just put everybody on drugs. I mean, and we see a lot of
Yeah.
those people, and a lot of physicians have been guilty of that. And in a way, that's true. However, if you, and this is what we do every single day at Rivero, if you contact these people on a daily basis, if you provide them support, if you provide them encouragement, if you provide them accountability and education, and you pair that with motivated, intelligent physicians,
Mhm.
that actually does work. It does turn and it's not that you can do that forever, but I can tell you, and this is why most of our patients are with us for about 6 months, because if we have a consistent supportive environment, helping people every single day until they finally reach that goal. Because a lot of people, they fall off after a couple of weeks of trying, and then it's
Mhm.
frustrating, and then they go back and then they said, "Oh, screw it, I'm just give me the drugs," and then there's all the negatives that potentially can come with that. So um, it is something that it just takes enough time and effort to help people. I think most people have the capacity to do it. It's just that some of them need a hell of a lot of support. And if you're not willing to provide the support, which most physicians can't because they don't have the resources, then yeah, you're not going to see success in it. And that's why you're like saying, "Oh, well, I told my client to eat a good healthy diet, but they didn't. And so here's the drugs." I mean, this is really
Yeah.
what we're seeing. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you just have to do more than tell people. You've got to show
Mhm.
them, demonstrate, hold them accountable, motivate them. I mean, it's not just a one and done thing. It's like every single day, right?
Mhm, mhm. Well, and we've seen that, there's another doctor in the carnivore space who talks about this, how he was the doctor that was telling people, "Go do this, go do that," and then, he was the one who, was actually obese and having metabolic syndrome, and then he realized, "Well, first of all, I have to walk the walk, and then I have to actually support people if I'm gonna tell them to do these things. I can't be telling them the wrong things to do." So, I think that is key. If you're gonna be helping people or trying to help them as a doctor, they need more than just a handout or, a worksheet or something, an information sheet. Go here, go do this. Because we're humans and we're not, most people are not self-starters, and there's also a lot of confusion out there. I mean, if you go online and start looking at YouTube and trying to figure out, like, what's the best way to get healthy, you're going to get bombarded
Yeah.
with all kinds of ideas and suggestions, and somebody selling something
Yeah.
that may or may not help you. And you and I were talking about this earlier. There's, right now peptides are really big. And so that bandwagon is pulling a lot of people in. And whether or not it's useful, that's up for debate. But is do you get the support? Is it right for you? And I think that's the key, is when you do something like Rivero, you're actually, it's tailored to what you need. And your doctor, your team is looking at root causes and how did we get here? And how can we get you out of this in the best, most sustainable way possible? Isn't that's the difference, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And it's also, because when you're thinking about all these things that, you can find support and validation for about any strategy you want to use. And so a lot of us, we sort of
Mm,
Well, I really like eating ice cream. I bet I can find a channel that shows me that keto ice cream is good for me, right? And so you can do this stuff. I mean, but the reality is, and I'll say it again, it's no secret. You got to sleep well. You got to have a nutritious diet. You've got to
Mhm.
be active. You've got to manage your stress, and you've got to respect your circadian biology. If you do those 5 things consistently over time, and it might be over a couple of years, you will get healthy. I mean, that is pretty much guaranteed. If you really do it, effectively and not just kind of
Mhm.
half-ass it. Sorry. But I think that,
Yeah.
one of the things that I like about what we do at Rivero is that, not only are we providing all that motivation and accountability, but we're looking at your data in a very objective, dispassionate way. Whereas, you might say, oh, I really like these whatever magic keto cookies that I make. We can see that that has an impact on you. We can look at your data and say, hey, look, the reality is, as much as you like it, it's not it's not doing you any favors. And so I'm using a silly example, but that's the reality. Sometimes you
Yeah.
need a dispassionate, objective set of eyes to look at you and kind of what we call hang crepe and say, look, this is the reality, so that you don't just sort of, because we're very good at rationalizing and justifying things that
Yeah.
maybe not our best just because we have a preference or something like that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not that you cannot enjoy your life or your food. You don't have to be a miserable monk, sort of person that's not what I will say is, and people, what you train, you train every day, and I mostly do. But that, to me, allows me the capacity to enjoy the richness and the fullness of life. I don't have any problem, walking miles and miles and miles, or hiking upstairs, or going up mountains, or anything that some people my age, they can't do. I mean, they literally pigeon themselves in a hole where all they can do is they can become spectators in life, and you want to be an active participant, right? And so this is what
Yeah.
these things do allow you to do.
Active participant, that's exactly right, and I think, I mean, our society makes it really easy not to do that. It makes it really easy to be passive, to everything from, our consumerism. You can just open your phone. You can live your whole life looking at your phone. Click a button, food comes to your door. Click a button, a show comes on. It's over and over and over, and, you don't like, you literally don't even have to walk except for going to your front door if you
Well, I mean,
wanna design a life like that, which I
yeah, and it's
don't.
and it's gonna get worse. I know you hear guys like Elon Musk talking about the big robot army they're gonna unleash on humanity, and all of a sudden robots will
Mhm.
be doing all the menial tasks, and you'll have a robot in your house doing the dishes and doing the laundry and mowing the lawn, whatever. I mean, you can imagine. So that humans become physically obsolete. All we're there to do is what? Watch video games and stick VR glasses on our eyes. Um, and oh, by the way, because everybody's out of a job, now we're gonna give everybody universal basic income and
Mhm.
have them stare at screens all day. That is a very possible reality, or some version of that. And
Mhm.
you don't want to lose your humanity in that, because that's what will happen. We will lose our humanity. We will lose our souls in that type of world. And it's already starting to happen. How everybody's sucked into so much of this electronic screen stuff. We've got to do what makes us humans, what makes us, actual humans. And a lot of it is our physical being. And once that is taken away from us, I just, I don't know. I don't know that I want to be part of that.
Well, people need to have a purpose, and that's what you're talking about, that if you don't have a reason to get up in the morning, um and you don't have a reason to leave your house, and you don't have a reason to walk outside of your house. I mean, that seems trivial, but it's really important, and you think about how our nation was founded and settled and built. It was, we're a nation of builders, and relegating all of that to electronics and robotics, like you're saying, we'll lose our soul as a nation, as a people, as a society, and not just America. We have Canadians on, we have people from all over the world listening right now, but humanity is more than just the sum of our parts. It's the agency that we have. It's what we bring to the table to build. to create a legacy, and to steward what it is that we have, our physical bodies, our resources beyond just laying around doing nothing. I mean, it's just that's not what we were created for, you know? Um, so we've got a couple of questions. People are starting to ask questions in the chat here. Kimberly made a comment, which I couldn't agree with more. The language has to be abbreviated, but basically 2020 effed everything up, you know?
Mm.
It did because people were literally, you know, um, fined for leaving their houses, like crazy, absolutely crazy. People were arrested for going out in the ocean on their paddle boards. Skate parks were filled in with sand. Like it was, the nation was disincentivized. The world was disincentivized from doing the things that we're created to do. It was insanity, and then people bought into it. Just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and some people are still scarred from that. I mean,
Mhm.
there's I see some people that still are just. I mean, they're terrified
Yeah.
to go outside. I mean, still, even 5 years later, 6 years later.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, it's obviously I disagreed with a huge, significant parts of how we handled this so-called COVID pandemic. I mean, I just
Mhm.
think we did a,
Horrible.
I don't know if you could have made a worse outcome than what we had. I know there are people that vehemently would disagree with that and think that, the government did everything right, but I mean, it's clearly that wasn't the case. I think most people are smart enough to know that,
Oh,
even though the gaslighting and the revisionist history is being produced like it always is. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, you wanna take a few questions? First of all, I wanna give a shout out to one of our people because I think she has been, well, one of my long, long time listeners and moderators on Rumble. But Delia has really done amazing things. She's 68, running 5 um, plus miles 5 days a week, strength training once a week, marathon number 10 is coming up in 3 months. Um, so go Delia. Shout out to you. And I think you mentioned that you had done some work with Rivero, but I'm not sure. But that's pretty cool. We'd like to celebrate those wins for people. And 68, awesome. And I know Delia has really put in a lot of work to make a lot of changes in your life. So go you. Okay. Let's jump to some questions. Do you see um the first one from Dominic? Do you see that one on YouTube?
Yeah, I can
Lost
see it.
60
So
pounds.
60
Okay.
pounds off for 2 years now, put 15 back on and keep snowboarding. I think that must be a typo, but I think it may be rebounding,
Snowballing, maybe
snowballing, yeah.
rebounding.
Anyway, can't seem to stay clean. Seems like once a week I have the wrong thing and I start from scratch. Yeah, I mean, consistency is a problem. I mean, compliance is a science. How do you get there? I mean, this is one of the things we do at Rivera. We help people to be compliant because that is a challenge for a lot of folks. Um, I think, and I talk a lot about the fact that I think a lot of it's mindset. I mean, if you in your mind truly believe and truly want to get somewhere, you'll do what it takes to get you there. You will, figure out what those obstacles and barriers are and eliminate them. Maybe it's the fact that, the house has junk in it. And, if there's a bunch of Snickers bars in the cabinets or whatever it might be, they're there in the back, even if it's hidden in the back, they're there and they're gonna get eaten in a weak moment.
Yeah.
So you have to purge the house of that stuff if you wanna really, you've got to like make the decision, hey, I'm not going to drive to the 7-Eleven to buy candy bars or whatever it might be. I mean, you've got to just make that happen. Sometimes you need a supportive environment around you. Sometimes you have to have, uh, you know, um, separate goals. So another goal to reach for. It might be. This is why I love sports so much because I can always like. I've got a tangible goal. We're very, a lot of people are very goal oriented. It's like, hey, I'm going to do whatever that is. Maybe I'm gonna run a 5K in under 20 minutes or something. Find something that will give you a sense of purpose that you will get some level of um exhilaration from achieving, even if you're the only one that knows about it or you're the only one that cares. Because I can tell you, I do all this athletics. I've set world records. My wife could care less. I tell her, hey, I broke another world record. Okay, that's nice, dear. It's just it has. She does. No one cares. No one cares about this stuff except for myself only, and maybe a few weirdos that are niche guys that know what this stuff means on the internet. But so I mean, I think you just have to realize that you can always better yourself, and again, I think it's so much. Health is a mindset. Success is a mindset, winning is a mindset. And
Mm,
sometimes you just don't accept the negative outcome. You just don't accept the failure and say, I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to do whatever
mm,
it takes to get there. And yes, I might fail from time to time, but I'm not going to give up. And I think that's, again, I don't know all the particulars of the situation. I'm sure, if we had more details, we could give you more ideas, but it's in general. Remove the
mhm.
obstacles, right? And put incentives and put helpers around you to help you to be successful.
That I like that, what you're saying about, having a specific goal or milestone, because instead of just saying, "Oh, I gotta work out," there's nothing attached to that. There's no meaning attached to it. Everybody's definition of working out is different. Everybody's definition of, being fit is different. And so for you, what does that mean? And I mean, it reminds me of a situation I was in when I lived in Hawaii. I did a paddleboard race, a downwind race, and it was the first time I had done it. And my performance was bad. I didn't train for it. I wasn't really, um, I just didn't know that much. I was a rookie, and I made a decision at the end of that race that I would train, and that the next year when the race came around, I would do better. And I hired a trainer and I had a coach, and so when I did it the next time, I took an hour and 20 minutes off my time. I mean, it was so much different, and the experience was so much better because I had made a decision. I'm not going to be last again. I don't have to be first, but I'm not gonna be last,
Well,
and
I
I'm
mean,
gonna be
you saw that you
stronger.
improved, right? You saw the
Oh, I
improvement.
improved a lot. Yes, yeah.
And you don't, I mean, and I mean, honestly, you don't need to hire expensive coaches and stuff. There's
No.
so much stuff available to you online to help you improve for free. I mean, like for instance, I'm working on my Olympic style lifting.
Mhm,
And I'm watching videos. I'm doing corrective exercises. I'm training that to do that. But I mean, yeah, when you
yeah,
have a tangible, objective goal, maybe it's to swim one lap in the pool in under 30 seconds,
mhm,
whatever it might be. You just do that and find something you enjoy, of course. I mean, maybe you like
yeah,
cycling, maybe you like hiking. I'd like to hike to the top of, St. Michael's Hill or whatever it might be at your house in under
mm,
an hour or something. Just get something that is tangible, it's objective, that you can see progress in, because success begets more success. And as you see progress,
mhm.
it's exciting. It it
Yeah,
makes you it makes you wanna, "What more can I do? Where can I be?" I'm
mhm,
excited to find out what my body's capable of and my mind and my spirit are
mm,
capable of. To me, that's cool. That's fun. I
yeah,
mean, and for
yeah,
those, I mean, it's like never being in the rain and never dare to trying. That is, in my view, such an unfulfilled life,
mm,
right?
yeah.
So you need to get after it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think for me, it's like the easy part for me was just getting in the ocean, getting out on the board. The hard part for me was figuring out the strategy to do it, which is why I brought in a coach. Plus, I sometimes I just need somebody to kind of kick my butt, you know?
Mhm.
And and I know that about myself. And so once I got into the routine, it was easy, but it was like, if these are your goals, this is how you meet them and this is how you let me help you define the steps to get there. And so that was helpful for me,
Yeah. No,
for that
I'm a big
situation.
proponent of coaching. I mean,
Yeah, but you don't have to,
every
right?
world record I've ever set in every sport, and I've set records in multiple sports, I have had high level coaching to help me to get there.
Mhm, mhm. But
And
I guess your
and
point is don't let it stop you. Don't let
right, if you don't, yeah, you
the
don't,
absence of
unless your
resources,
goal is to be a
right?
world champion athlete or even a
Mhm,
very high level elite athlete, you probably can get away without coaching, particularly in the beginning. Sometimes it saves, if you can afford one, heck yeah, it saves you
mhm,
steps. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes it's a trial and error thing, and then I'm the type of guy, and you have to be. I get obsessed. I literally obsess about things, to get
Yeah.
really good at it, and you
Yeah.
have to be. I talk to any, like, champion of any athlete sport, they're obsessed with their sport. They know everything about it, they
Mhm.
know the history of it, they know all the science behind
Yeah.
it, and that's just the way it is, for to reach that level.
Yeah, yeah, I can but back to your point, if you can't anybody who's watching right now online, there's no excuse for not finding resources to help train you at the from the very beginning, like, don't even know how to stand up off the couch by myself, to I want to reach this milestone in this sport. There's so many free resources available online. I mean, we're in an age where all you have to do is pick up your phone to get the resources you need, which is fantastic. So no excuses. Okay, we do have a question about arthritis. This is
Yep,
Melody.
I see it, yeah.
Want to
Yeah, I
read
can
that?
read it, yeah. Yeah, so it says, "I have horrible, almost debilitating arthritis in my hands. Strict carnivore, eat all meats, butter, bacon, and eggs. Is there anything that can exacerbate the pain in my hands?" First of all, let me just point out the phenomenon of hand arthritis. How many of you have been told, you have arthritis because you're overweight, right? And, because the weight is putting too much weight on your knees, and that's why your knees hurt. And while, again, there is a mechanical phenomenon that occurs, but it always struck me as odd because why do people get arthritis in their
Mhm.
hands then? I mean, you're not walking on your hands. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's no like overloaded weight on your hands. And most people don't have obese hands. I mean, some do, but the reality is that arthritis is a biological more than a mechanical phenomenon. And so when there is, you know, inflammatory cytokines, inflammatory adipokines and things like that. That's why you hurt in many cases. And um, yes, does it diet have an impact on that? Absolutely, it does. Does it? Are there other things that also impact it? So, in the context of a carnivore diet, it might be eggs, it might be this or that, it might be that maybe glucose is higher than it needs to be or something like. So you can look into those things and make those adjustments. It could be stress related. It could be some concomitant other metabolic issue or health issue. Sometimes, like some people notice, like if they have like, you've ever heard about the person that says, I can always tell when it's going to rain because my knee starts hurting.
Mhm.
And that's what the barometric pressure, that's a weather and it does occur. I mean, we do have data that supports
Mhm.
the change in atmospheric pressure can lead to more symptoms. So there's a lot of variables that go into this stuff. And so, again, I would just holistically, maybe you have to clean up and take some eggs out or something like that for a while, play with that, try a very strict diet for a little while, see if it helps, maybe give it a couple weeks or a month and see if it makes any difference at all. Be very realizing that, be objective about it. My pain today is a 7 out of 10. Okay, 2 weeks of just eating beef, it's now a 5 or 6 out of 10. So that's progress. But you don't know it if you're not recording
Mhm.
it because sometimes
Mhm.
it's hard to see. That's why I like athletics because I can see objectively. Hey, I could either lift this weight or I couldn't. I could do it 5 times or I could do it
Mhm.
8 times. And then I think the other things we talked about, stress, sleep, uh, you know, light exposure, all those things can mitigate
Mhm.
inflammation, which can lead to, increased pain.
Do you think that something like, minerals would have an impact on that? So, for example, sometimes I get really bad cramping in my feet or legs, and
Yeah.
if I add a little bit of sea salt, even if I just eat it, straight, that really helps me. Is that something that you've seen could be helpful maybe? I don't know
Well, I
what
mean,
her situation is, but is that something?
physiologically, I mean, for cramping, it makes a lot more sense because, the muscular
Mhm.
contraction is based upon
Yeah, it's
shifts,
not the same, right?
shifts in electrolytes. But yeah, I don't know that the arthritic pain
Mhm.
is gonna be impacted much by that.
Mhm.
I mean, it could be. I mean, it wouldn't be the first thing I would think of. And like I said,
'Cause it's
uh, you
easy
know,
to try, right?
well, yeah, you can try it, but I mean, again, I would try some other things long before I would say it's a mineral problem because it's
Mhm. Okay.
probably not. I may be wrong on that though.
I'm like the guy from My Cousin Vinny, "Just put the Windex on it, just eat the salt." Do you remember that? Remember that movie?
I remember My Kind of Vinny, but I don't remember the whole
I
movie. It
remember
was a
the
long time.
dad, like, everybody every problem that came up, just, "Here, put some Windex on it," and I'm like, Here, just eat some salt. Um,
Well, I'll tell you, it kind of reminds me when I was playing back when I was playing professional rugby. It was like, any injury, they'd come out and pour water on it. Like they pour magic water on your leg. That's supposed to heal you. It's just like I just laugh. I see somebody, oh, they're coming out. They got the water bottle. They're gonna save that guy's ruptured Achilles tendon, but pouring water on it or something.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
it's
Yeah,
the
that's
same type of
pretty
thing.
much the same. I gotta watch that movie. That was a good movie. No, it wasn't my sorry, it was not My Cousin Vinny. I had that on my brain. It was My Big Fat Greek Wedding, another classic.
I have
Do
not
you remember
seen that
that?
movie. I've
Oh
never
my
never
gosh.
seen that
Well,
one. Yeah, yeah,
okay, who show of hands, who has watched My Cousin Vinny? That is one of the best movies. The 2 youths, I mean, so Marissa Tomei,
yeah, yeah.
she was just amazing in that movie, and then, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, just put some Windex on it. I think it was, like, the crazy uncle or the
Yeah,
grandpa
yeah, sure, yeah.
every time you turn around. But, okay, we do have a question from Julie on YouTube. Last night I ate pork belly, a very high fat meat. I don't usually eat pork belly, but today I feel amazing. Do you think I need more high fat meat in my diet? Um, I eat shrimp, fish, beef. We may not have enough information, Julie, but what do you think, Dr.
Well,
Baker?
I think that, a carnivore diet in general is a higher protein diet and a higher fat diet than most standard diets by far. Um, I think that, when you are not consuming carbohydrates for whatever reason, and, I'm not, I certainly will say there's plenty of people that consume carbohydrates and do fine with that. But if you are restricting your carbohydrates because they have negative impacts on you, and you're going to now be dependent upon fat, and your fat's going to come from your dietary fat, or in some cases your body fat, depending on how much you have, or how have access to. I should say, I should be more clear on that.
Mhm,
Um, then you're going to need, you're going to need that for your energy. And it may have been that,
mhm.
the shrimp is particularly lean. Chicken is also fairly lean, or fish can be fairly lean. Beef variably is lean depending on what cuts you're eating. Pork, pork belly is very high fat. I mean, it's one of the fattest things you can eat, basically, outside of pure fat. And so it may be that you're just, a little low on energy. And it might be that, um, maybe not eating pork belly every day, because the problem some people get into is they get a initial boost from a little more high fat, and so they just step on the gas full speed and start eating nothing but fat, and then 6 months later they're wondering why they've gained 10 pounds. So you have to kind of, you need fat, but you need enough. I mean, you want to find the minimum effective doses for some of these things. I think the
Mhm.
same thing for any amount of food. Find the minimum effective dose to get you to the place you need and want to be. And it might, there's a lot of variables in there. Like some people want to lose weight, some people want to put on weight, some people want to perform at a high level athletically. So you find the minimum effective doses on foods to get you there. And then if you do that consistently, I think the outcomes are better. I think it's when we get in a situation where we overeat anything. I don't care if it's meat. I don't care if it's
Mm,
refined garbage. I mean, overconsumption is a tautologic argument that says, eating too much is always going to be bad. Doesn't matter what it is.
okay. We have a quick question about dairy. So Kimberly wants to know your thoughts on dairy. Kimberly, I also want you to know that I put the link for the freeze-dried beef in the YouTube chat. I don't know if you saw it. I tried to tag you, but it is freeze-dried. To answer your question. So we got thoughts on dairy, and then a question about can carnivore raise testosterone? Uh, go ahead. We've got a few
Yeah.
more
So
questions about
general thoughts on dairy. I mean, in many forms, it tastes phenomenal. I mean, dairy is a high quality product that is rich in nutrients. The job of dairy is to do what? The job of dairy is to grow small things and make them bigger, right? It's some of the best protein, some of the best of protein that we can have on the planet from a digestibility standpoint. However, um, it is very easy to overconsume dairy. Dairy has properties that make cows want to drink more of it and make babies want to drink more of it. Because the job is to grow. And when you're an adult, those properties are still there. So these things like casomorphones and stuff like that can be quite addictive. Um, there are people that have certain sensitivities to certain dairy proteins, particularly the caseins. And so I think you just have to take that with a bit of hindsight and just be cautious with dairy. So I consume dairy,
Mm,
certainly from time to time, sometimes more than others. I generally feel better when I consume less of it rather than more. But it can make what might be perceived as a restrictive, boring diet more accessible and sustainable. So, I mean,
Mm,
use it as
yeah.
a condiment type of thing. I hate to use the word
Mhm.
condiment, but I mean, use it sparingly as
An
as needed
accessory.
as an
And good
accessory,
good.
and it's certainly not the main meal.
Right.
And I think you will find the answers to your
Yeah.
questions. And there are some people that just don't do well with dairy at all. I mean, that's clear. There are other people that can,
Mhm.
eat fairly decent amounts and thrive. So it varies.
I'd like to jump to a question that came up in the very beginning of the show, and this person is now asking again, so I wanted to give them an opportunity. Can carnivore possibly put, um, ankylosing
Spondylitis, yeah.
spondylitis in remission?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I mean, it can. It doesn't. There's no guarantee that it will, but I've seen a lot of people with the various, ankylosing spondylitis is what's called an inflammatory arthropathy, right? So it affects the spine, the pelvis, the shoulder, kind of the
mhm,
shoulder girdle. It can be debilitating, horribly painful. It can lead to higher rates of fracture. And so I have seen a whole bunch of people with AS go carnivore and get significant relief, some to the point where they're asymptomatic. Not all of them, but many do. In fact, that's one of the conditions we treat at Rivera. We have some of our patients with AS, and some of the patients I see every week, some of them have AS, and most of them uh, see improvements. It's not something, and it depends on the severity. It's not something that's going to go away in a week or two. It might take even a couple of years of that plus. I mean, I think the diet is one of the pillars of success. There's other things you got to do too, right? I think all the things I've been talking about: sleep, exercise, on and on and
yeah,
on. So
yeah.
short answer is yes, it can. I can't guarantee it. I mean, I know I've seen people that have. I don't care what the condition. I've seen people who've tried to shoot with carnivore and it hadn't helped them for whatever reason. And it may be that they haven't done enough of the other things coupled with it, but certainly it can help and does help. And, you know, maybe hopefully for you, it will help.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. A lot of people are either going carnivore, already are thinking about sea salt, things like that. I put a link up here to my Amazon store. I have a whole shopping list up there if you want to browse different items that people find helpful and useful for the carnivore diet. The air fryers, the sea salts, a lot of things. There's no meat on the Amazon store. But, the other stuff you can find, and I've put it all together in a convenient shopping list. So if you wanna click that link, you can do that. We have a question from Lockbeard, kidney cancer. Doctor says, "I probably have kidney cancer other than eating carnivore, fasting." Um, there's a word I can't chloroacetate, Fen-Ben, ivermectin combo. What else would you do in my situation? And that may be a question for Rivero practitioners, but Dr. Baker?
Yeah, well, we're not specifically treating, cancer, directly, although we do have some cancer patients, and,
Mhm.
it's usually they have metabolic disease. So if you have any, evidence of metabolic disease in addition to the cancer, yeah, you have to address those issues. I mean, you have to lose excess body fat. You have to, and it sounds like some of the things you're doing are going to contribute to that. I think that there's a concept of the GKI, the glucose ketone index, which you may be aware of. This is based on some of the work of guys like Tom Seyfried, who has not necessarily focused on kidney cancer, but he's focused a lot on cancer in general, and particularly brain cancers. And so there are a few places out there that strictly focus on cancer. One would be the Paleomedicina group out of Europe. They've got a lot of publications on different protocols around that stuff. I don't have as much insight and knowledge on the antihelminthic drugs, the antiparasitical drugs, ivermectin, mebendazole, so on and so forth. That it's just not something I utilize.
Mhm.
I understand that there are people that are promoting that. I don't know enough to say yes or no on that, to be honest. I think that for sure, regardless of what else you do, a good, healthy, clean diet is going to be beneficial for you, and a nutritious diet, because and I would say obviously a meat-based diet falls in that category, and it has a bonus of probably lowering your available glucose load. Tom Seyfried will talk about glutamate as an alternative fuel for many of the types of cancer, and there are um, compounds you can take to minimize the glutamate. So that might be something in there. And I don't know, sounds like it's still kind of, you may have kidney cancer. It doesn't sound like it's
Mhm.
been completely washed out of what it is. Is it an early stage? Is it, is it high grade, low grade? Those things are going to impact obviously the prognosis and outcome, and perhaps the treatment.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. We let's see, we'll take a couple more. We've got yeah, somebody mentioned magnesium glycinate. That's a I we use that a lot in our family. Make sure it's the right kind of salt, of course. So, okay, we already got that question. Let's see. Sardines. People are talking about food. The YouTube chat is just coming in with all kinds of comments and questions today. You guys are busy over there. Um, let's see if we have any. Okay, here we go. 71, Deborah, 71-year-old female, carnivore-ish, that was lifting almost my body weight of 120. Then I got an abdominal hernia several months ago. Suggestions. Do you have any suggestions? I'm going to the doctor in 2 weeks. What do you think?
Well, again, from speaking as a surgeon, and again, this wasn't general surgery wasn't my forte. I was doing orthopedics. I mean, I did do
Mhm.
some basic general surgery when I trained. And I mean, the considerations around hernias, are they, they're incarcerated? Does that mean, when you strain to portions of your, your abdominal contents get past the skin and get stuck there? I mean, these are decisions for, do we need to fix it or not? Most surgeons you're going to go to are going to say, let's fix it. And I think most of the, depending on the size and the what's going on, what gets entrapped in there, most of the literature would support fixing it. In my view, and if it were happening to me, as much as I like to continue to be active, I think it makes sense. Why that occurred? I mean, obviously straining is a potential risk. Why your abdominal wall was weak in the first place might have been through childbirth, years of disuse, whatever. I mean, it could be some of those things. So those are some of those things you just have to. That's why I think the progression has to be slow and steady and methodical. Because you want to bring up all these weak areas evenly. If you decide to have surgery, or not, and some hernias are so small they don't need surgery, then I would increase my protein intake by about 10 to 15%. The nutritional literature in general surgical literature suggests that is helpful for healing. So this is where a time where I would just eat a little more protein to allow things to heal, and then whatever happens with regard to how the hernia is treated, I don't know. I can't comment, really intelligently on that. The other thing I would say is, if they, a lot of times these hernias are, they do a mesh repair. They tell you, hey, don't lift weights for, 6 weeks, 3 months. I mean, that's fine, but get back to it. I would make sure you go to a surgeon that's going to allow you to go back to training. That's what I would do, because, that let them know that I would like to continue doing this because it's so beneficial to you, so that they may alter their repair based on that. If they think they got somebody who's just going to sit on their butt all day, they may not throw the kitchen sink in there. But if they know they got somebody who's going to be really active and aggressive and wanting to do this, then they'll do more during the surgery. Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah, so glad that that question came up. So we kind of skipped over the testosterone question. So somebody had asked, have you seen instances? I'm going to rephrase the question. Have you seen instances of people developing, getting lower testosterone on carnivore? What
Sure.
what's your understanding of that, for men or women?
Yeah. So yeah, and you're right. Testosterone is important for both men and women. I mean, they have functions. I mean, obviously, we classically associate it with men. What we see with carnivore typically is that as someone's metabolic health improves, their clinical expression and function of testosterone improves. What do I mean by that? Clinically, the things that testosterone does works better, and that would be sexual function, the ability to have an erection as a male, body composition, mood, all the things that we associate good about testosterone are things that most people experience as they improve their metabolic health, provided they're eating sufficient calories, right? You got to have enough energy to do all
Mhm.
these things. Now, the number itself, I'm less concerned with, because what sometimes happens is that testosterone maybe doesn't move, maybe it goes down slightly, maybe it goes up slightly, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But the receptor, the androgen receptors that we have all over our body become upregulated. And it's the very same thing that happens with insulin. We talk about insulin sensitivity. We want really sensitive receptors. We don't want receptors that are resistant, that are gummed up with these fats and things like that. So when the androgen receptor gets more sensitive, you don't need as much testosterone. So the number is irrelevant relative to the clinical function. If you have clinical deficiencies, like, hey, I struggle with, sexual function. I can't build muscle or whatever. That's a different story there, right? And this is when you get into the argument of what can we do to fix that situation. I think that the problem I see with a lot of people is they go in, they're overweight, they're metabolically healthy, their testosterone is low, and their doctor just slaps them on testosterone. And that's, again, a metabolic band-aid. It's not doing what it should be doing. I mean, it's not to say that maybe it couldn't help you down the road, but you have to address those metabolic issues, in my view, first. And you got to put in the work. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but there's no shortcuts. There's no free lunches. You've got to just put in the work consistently with time. The good news is once you start doing it, it becomes habitual, and it'll work with time.
Thank you. So let's see what we've got here.
Well, let me put one more
Yep.
one more comment on that. There was a nice paper in 2018 that Stu Phillips and some others did, looking at testosterone. Well, actually, a bunch of hormones: testosterone growth hormone, DHEA, free testosterone, and athletic males in their 20s that were college students. In that situation, what they found was that the only variable that predicted gaining muscle, none of the hormones predicted it. And these are natural guys. These aren't on guys taking drugs. These are natural guys.
Mhm.
The number one predictor of muscle gain was androgen receptor density. They did biopsies on that, and they said the people that had a lot of androgen receptors in their muscles put on way more muscle. It didn't matter what the hormone level was, right? So that's just another interesting thing to note.
Okay. Let's see. We've got, and we're going to wrap up here soon. So this is on YouTube. Heaven is asking. That's the person's name, Heaven. Will I develop nutritional deficiencies if I can't afford to eat predominantly ruminant meat? I'm currently eating about half of my calories from eggs, chicken, and pork.
I don't know that you get an overt, clinically significant deficiency. I mean, pork is a red meat. I don't know what most people know. They call it the other white meat, but it's technically still a red meat.
Hmm.
You know, what does beef and lamb have that these other ones don't have in as high amounts? I think it has, a little bit more iron content. It has a little bit more, I think, carnitine and some of these other compounds, which, are conditionally essential, I suppose. Um, I have seen a lot of people be successful on carnivore that eat maybe not a lot of red meat. I don't see a lot of people being successful that eat none of it. And like I mentioned, pork is considered a red meat if you tolerate it. Well, it's obviously more affordable for most people. I mean, pork in the grocery store is about half what beef is typically, sometimes even less than that. So I think that the answer is probably not. If it became an issue, let's say you're having trouble getting enough iron or something like that, you could always just take a pill. You could always supplement in that situation, and it might be cheaper than having to buy, I don't know. I mean, my thought would be just get a couple, 2 pounds of ground beef and eat that once a week. I mean, even today with the high prices, you can still find a pound of ground beef for $5. I mean, it might be on sale or something like
Hmm.
that, but that's how I would approach that.
Yeah, I think shopping, it's you can find things on sale. And one of the things I think too that comes into question here is some people feel like um, if they can't afford, the grass fed, grass finished, that kind of thing, that it's not worth it. But I think there's a lot of evidence to support support the opposite, that, having, um, beef or chicken or, just conventionally raised, I don't know about chicken, but beef, ruminant that's conventionally raised, it's still better than eating, highly processed foods. Like cleaning up your diet and if all you can afford is regular grocery store beef, that's still better than doing the highly processed foods and the sugars and the high carb diet and things like that. So you're in a better place, even without getting, what some people call like, the panda massage, beef or whatever. But but I think that's really key. And I wanted to say, I tagged, who was it that said that they had the question about the Lockbeard on YouTube. I tagged you with something on there, so I don't know if you got it, but give us a thumbs up if you did. Do we have any more questions, or are we good?
I think it's good. And I probably have to run, so I
Okay.
got somebody meeting
All right.
coming to my house here in a few minutes. So anyway,
Okay.
thank you, Mary, for having
So,
me on. Thanks for everybody
awesome,
for listening
everybody.
in,
We'll be
and yeah.
back in a few weeks, and, hope everybody has a great day. Go outside, touch some grass, pick up heavy things, put your phone down, look at the sky, talk to God, and have a great weekend. And I just have to say, Virginia Cavaliers, go Who's, number one in the ACC. We could actually take it all the way. So just want to say that because I have to, because it's been so long. um,
I think the last time they were good was when Ralph Sampson was playing, maybe.
well, this is
If you
football.
remember
It's
him.
even. I mean, we
Oh,
we just
football.
like
Okay,
this is
yeah,
all new for
yeah,
us, and for the
yeah.
first time in the history of the school, founded in 1819, we won a football game on the West Coast last week. We beat California. Now, how California got in the ACC, that's a whole nother conversation. But, anyway, everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.